Hello, this is Eric Koch in Interpersonal Communications. I am doing my presentation on communicating emotions. So, introduction to topic. I chose the topic of communicating emotions because if not all, most communication between human beings as species is in some way communicated with emotions attached to it, showing how something makes you feel, actions or facial expressions to another's actions, etc., has emotional attachment to it. This also can do with normal conversations, and it also depends on the people themselves. People can display different kinds of emotions with hand gestures, as I previously said, facial expressions and such, and that is what we are basically going to get into in this presentation. So, communicating emotions through touch. In the article that I went with on communicating emotions through touch, it goes over the importance of physical interactions in relationships. When in any emotional kind of relationship, all of the facial expressions that have universal expressions such as anger, fear, love, disgust, and compassion, sympathy, were all emotions that were detected in a study that tested to see if by simply expressing emotion by the touch on a forearm could have identified the emotion that was being portrayed. Basically, what was happening inside of the experiment was that they got two separate groups of people. One group of people that had to do with close friends, relatives, romantic lovers, and another group of complete strangers. What they did was that they got them all together and tried to portray specific emotions, like previously stated, fear, anger, love, disgust, compassion, all by the touch of touching the other person on the forearm. It was founded that these individuals were only able to pick up on these specific emotions if they had some kind of prior relationship. Relationships and just knowing the person has a huge impact on being able to perceive different kinds of emotion. It has to do with family, friends, and alike. If you're a complete stranger, it can be harder for you to detect those specific emotions just because you don't know them. Now, there are the universal facial expressions that everyone knows that is just embedded into us as beings, except when it comes to showing emotion, maybe from tone of voice, touch, it's all the physical stuff that has a much more complicated aspect to it. So, identifying the communication. The importance of this topic when it comes to communicating emotion is that there are many things that are a part of identifying emotions from one person to another, like previously stated. And in the picture right here, listening, friendliness, open-mindedness, you have to talk to the person, engage with them, look at them in the eye, show them that you're listening, and of course right here, two people giving each other a high five. Friendliness, that's that physical touch. With physical touch there is also that reassurance. Now if you look at someone and you're just having a pretty emotional conversation, sometimes those people can hear your words, but actions are a step forward. Actions speak louder than words. So if you are with somebody and you are both talking about a very heavy topic, let's say you put your hand on their shoulder, given that the situation is appropriate for that, that gives reassurance. I am there for you, and such. So the findings inside of the article, it also comes into play of knowing the person and having an emotional level connection with them for physical communication to take proper effect. Like previously stated, romantic couples were most likely to be able to sense different emotions from each other, while strangers were least likely to know what kind of emotion was being displayed to them purely by touch. This example over here is from the article specifically. It basically shows the areas of confusion for all of the people that were just strangers. So love, sadness, sympathy, envy, disgust, anger, gratitude, pride, happiness were all big groups that the individuals were not able to detect, while fear, embarrassment, and surprise were more so the ones that they were able to see. Probably most likely because there's hesitation with fear. Embarrassment can have that sort of a strange melancholy sort of reaction. and surprise is like a quick jolt. So those things can probably be a lot easier to detect. While for the couple's confusion space, it was very small. Gratitude, pride, happiness, anger, and disgust, those were things that were most likely a little more confusing to display, but love, surprise, envy, embarrassment, those much stronger emotions were way easier to be detected. And inside of the couples group, there were a lot less emotions not being detected. So context of Interstellar with communicating emotion. The article also talked about why communicating emotion is so much more detectable with those you are emotionally connected to. Being in a family unit has the ability to have insight and emotional care for those in that family. After reading the article, I specifically thought about a movie called Interstellar. In the film, the main character is sent on a mission in interstellar space to find a new home for humanity. After being on a planet where time moves much slower than on Earth, the main character is welcomed by an extremely emotional message from his now adult children. I have a link here that will direct us to a YouTube page. It is going to show the entire scene. It's about 4 minutes long. I believe it's good to watch the entire thing. I will add in a timestamp if maybe you just want to watch a little part of it and then skip forward.
But nothing gets out.
Is he alive?
We've got years of messages stored. Come on.
Messages span 23 years.
Say it from the beginning.
Hey, Dad. Check it in. Say hi. Finished second in school. This girl is still giving me C's, so blew me down, but second's not bad. Grandpa attended the ceremony. Oh. I met another girl, Dad. Alright, this is the one. Thomas, right there. Murphy stole Grandpa's car. She crashed it. She's playing on it. Hey, Dad. His name's Jesse. I can go on poop, but this is, next time. But Donald says he's already earned the great part, so we'll just leave it at that. Sorry, it's been a while. With Jesse and Grandpa died last week. We buried him out in the back 40 next to Mom and Jesse. Which is where we would have buried you if you'd come back. Marv was there at the funeral, and I don't see her that much, but she came for that. You aren't listening to this. All these messages are just drifting out there in the darkness. Rose says that I have to let you go. And so I guess let you go. Wherever you are today.
So I just wanted to interrupt in this part of the video. In this part, you can see clear distress on the main character's face. He is showing signs of regret, of sadness. There are tears, and you can also see this as well in his son. You see his pain in the fact that his grandfather and his son have passed, and these are very important elements when it comes to both of them as a family. They can feel those emotions, they can have sympathy for those emotions. But the one thing that they do not have, since they have been separated for such a long time, is that physical touch of knowing that they are really there. But both of these individuals are holding on to themselves from these video recordings that the father is now seeing and the son had sent, not knowing if his father would ever see them. Let's continue.
Never made one of these when you were still responding because I was so mad at you for leaving. And then when you went quiet, I feel like I should live with that decision, and I have. Today is my birthday. And it's a special one because you told me you once told me that when you came back we might be the same age. And today I'm the age you were when you left. This might be a real good time for you to come back.
So that is the end of the video. Basically, what I'm trying to portray with this clip is how these three individuals, being family, having that sort of backstory, having that sort of connection, can express great amounts of emotion, displaying what they feel, how they feel, and what is going on with them. The father showed incredible signs of distress, sadness, regret. The daughter, only sending one message, showed her signs of regret and her sadness that her father didn't come back when he said he might. Continuing on, so analysis of the clip. In the messages, the main character watches as his son grows up in the process of having to let his father go, and the last message being from his daughter saying how she never messaged him because of how angry she was that he left. Because of the fact that they were family, made the situation to be much more emotional when it came to the communication from the messages. Since the father wasn't able to respond, that caused a clear impact on him, leading to emotional distress that not only was due to lack of his family physically being there, but the pain he feels from the emotions communicated from his son and daughter. So when it comes to ineffective communication, this would have to do with the slide that we just, the video that we just watched. The lack of being there, that physical presence. This goes back to the article that we went over previously. Having that physical touch makes it much easier for people to identify those specific kinds of emotions. Without that physical, being there, it's a lot more difficult. It's one thing when you can see somebody, but it's another thing when you can be there with them, touching them, showing compassion physically. The emotion will be much different when it comes to those that you haven't seen, that you don't know. And when it comes to the effective communication about communicating emotion is how this is a pure way for us to express emotions to one another. Whether it be through touch, facial expressions, or tone of voice, all have an impact because of the universal aspects of showing emotions and how different relationships can depict different emotions. So over here is a picture, people talking, discussing different things, and kind of showing like a bunch of different things going on. What that kind of represents is how all aspects of communication have a reason, have an impact. They all have a specific purpose that leads to a specific mindset. In conclusion, in this presentation, you should have learned how important the relationship between one another affects the expression of emotion and communicating the emotion as a whole. How with different relationships, you can feel different situations And because of such situations, it makes it harder for one receiving information due to a lack of communication on either end. That goes back to the video that we just recently watched. The father got the messages, the children got none. This shows a lack of communication and disruption. There, in the context of the video, there is a major lack of understanding from the children. They think that their father is gone when in fact he is still alive. It has to do with lack of communication causes someone to be afraid. There are insecurities in on themselves. And then communicating emotions is simple yet difficult at the same time. This comes back to the insecurities. It shows many ways you can express yourself, but in some ways the relationship is what helps the communication as well as what causes the communication to be more difficult to hear. Also goes back to the video on how the main character's daughter, Murph, at the very end was communicating her complete distress that her father was not there when he said he probably would be back. And her father couldn't respond because by then they had grown so old, it was possible that in the context of the movie, they had already passed away. So that was going to be the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. I hope everything went smoothly. Can't wait to see what I got, and hope you have a great rest of your day.